Namo Namaha Bhaktam Sarvesham Hartam Swagatam. Welcome back to the channel Sanskrit Sopanam. I hope you are doing great. I'm also good. And moving ahead in our Learning Sanskrit through Gita series, today we'll be decoding the 46th shloka from the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita. In this particular shloka, Krishna is now giving the benefit of what he asked us to do in the previous shloka. So in the previous shloka, Krishna sort of gave a spiritual call to Arjuna that you, Arjuna, must get rid of all these dualities, all these pairs of opposites, all these different, worldly inhibitions, and you should rise up to that spiritual height. And the way to do that is to know the self. That self knowing, that self realization is that which will take us to that height. So Krishna wants all of us to reach to that height. And in this shloka, he is giving the benefit of doing that. That once you reach to that height, once you know the self, you are self-realized, what comes out of it. So that outcome is beautifully shown in this shloka by Krishna using a beautiful simile. So what is that? And from Sanskrit point of view, what we can learn. So this all we will see in this shloka without wasting any more time. Let's quickly dive into today's video. Okay, so this is the 46th shloka. Let me go through the shloka once. Yavanartha udapane sarvata samplutodake tavan sarveshu vedeshu brahmanasya vijanatah. Okay, so here is our shloka and here is the Sandhi Vichcheda of the same shloka. So there is only one Sandhi that we spot here. That is this Yavanartha and Udapane. See, Yavanartha, this itself is made of two words, Yavan and Artha. But this here, this is not a Sandhi. This is again just a halant consonant combining with the next adjacent letter. So this is not a Sandhi. But the Sandhi is happening here, Artha and Udapane. And what Sandhi is this? So this is the Visarga Lopa Sandhi. That after this aha, from this Artha, you have any other swara due to which this Lopa is happening, the Visarga Lopa Sandhi. Okay, and apart from this, we don't find any other Sandhi. And again, all the Sandhi details, the word by word breakdown is in the PDF sheet that you can download from the link in the description box. So that is for your own self-practice. Now let us move on and start the decoding of the shloka. Okay, and in this shloka, we don't find any Kriya Pada as to say. So if we don't find any Kriya Pada in any shloka, then that means it is like a statement. A statement is being made. In that case, we just assume this asti as an implicit Kriya Pada. Okay, so just for the sake of starting somewhere, we are starting with this implicit Kriya Pada asti, that means is. Okay, but what is the main content? What is the statement that is being made in the shloka? Now let us inquire about that. So I am asking kaha asti, like what is? So yavan artha asti. This artha, this is the main subject here. Artha, this comes from the Pratipadika artha, and this artha, this basically means meaning, or in the context of the shloka, this artha, this means use, or you can also take the meaning purpose. Okay, you have another Sanskrit word, no, prayojana. So that prayojana, that use, that purpose, that meaning is being given with this Pratipadika artha. And artha, so the form is simple. It is Prathama Vibhakti Ekvachanam form in masculine gender, Pullinga gender. And this yavan, so this yavan comes from the Pratipadika yavat. This yavat, this is a takaranta Pratipadika. It is sort of an adjective with the meaning as much. Okay, so yavat Pratipadika giving the meaning as much, and this Pratipadika, this is being used as an adjective for this artha. So this is also taking the same Prathama Vibhakti Ekvachanam form in masculine gender. Why masculine? Because the noun to which this yavat is being attached, is being attributed, is this artha. And this artha is the Pullinga Pratipadika. So this adjective is also taking the masculine gender form. So yavat atakarant Pratipadika becomes yavan in Prathama Vibhakti Ekvachanam. And our entire sentence become yavan artha asti. As much meaning, as much use in that sense. Okay, so this is what we are starting with. And now if I move on. So now I'm asking a question, kasmin, that as much use in what, as much meaning in what? So we have yavan artha udapane asti, udapane. So this is also coming from the Pratipadika udapana. Okay, it is a simple akaranta Pratipadika and it is a masculine gender Pratipadika. Okay, Pullinga Pratipadika. And as to what is the meaning of this udapana? So udapana simply means a reservoir. Okay, this means a small reservoir. Think of something like a pond, a lake or a well. So in that sense, a small reservoir. Okay, and the form that we see in the shloka is udapane. So this udapane is the Saptami Vibhakti form, that seventh case singular, Saptami Vibhakti Ekvachanam form, udapane, in the reservoir, in the small reservoir, in the well, in that sense. So up till this point we have yavan artha udapane asti. That as much meaning or as much use is in the reservoir, is in a small reservoir. So that is what we have up till this point. When we'll complete this sentence, so the entire meaning will become evident. And now see, we have another word here, samplutodake. Okay, so let us understand this word first. Okay, so samplutodake, this is a samasa where you have two individual words, sampluta and udaka. Sampluta, this means flooded. Okay, basically this pluta means flooded or overflowing. So that is this pluta, sampluta, sam, upsarga. This just adds that completeness of something, wholly flooded. So basically completely overflowing, completely flooded in that sense. And udaka, this means water here. Okay, and now when these two words, they come together in a samasa, and that is why the samasa becomes samplutodaka. Okay, because the guna sandhi happens between this ta and u. So samplutodaka, that is the samasa, and the meaning of the samasa is simple. Something that is flooded with water. Okay, so samplutodaka, flooded with water. That is the meaning. And now understand this, that this pratipadika is again used in the seventh case singular form. It is being used in the saptami vibhakti. That is important to understand. Because here the use of saptami vibhakti is not in the normal sense of in, on or at. It is not being used like this. The seventh case, the saptami vibhakti is used for the sati saptami prayoga. Okay, so this samplutodaka, this becoming samplutodake, the seventh case, this is being used for the sati saptami prayoga. So I hope you all remember the sati saptami prayoga. Okay, so just to give a quick refresher on sati saptami prayoga, think of sati saptami prayoga as a substitute, as a replacement of yada asti. So for instance, I want to say something like when the object is yada vishayah asti. Okay, so when an object is yada vishayah asti. So in order to substitute this entire sentence, what I can do is I can take the main noun, this vishaya, and I can just put it in the saptami vibhakti form. So I can simply write vishaye, that is it. So vishaye, this is going to give the same meaning as yada asti, yada vishayah asti. Okay, just I have to write this in the saptami prayoga form. So again here with this samplutodaka, that is flooded with water, if I want to write the sentence as yada samplutodakam asti, that when there is this flooding. Okay, flooded with water is basically the flooding. Okay, so when the flooding is, when there is flooding. So in order to represent this, I can just take this pratipadika samplutodaka and just put it in the saptami vibhakti form. So samplutodake. Okay, and the meaning will be when flooded with water. That is the same meaning, that you are just replacing this yada asti, when flooded with water, samplutodake. Okay, so I hope this is clear, that this saptami vibhakti prayoga is with reference to this sati saptami prayoga. Okay, whenever a writer, he uses this seventh case, saptami vibhakti, for this sati saptami prayoga, so a lot of time they are going to add an appropriate marker. That in this case, they will just simply put sati in the bracket, marking that it is a sati saptami prayoga. Okay, because this sati itself comes from sat, this pratipadika, and this sat pratipadika again is formed using this as dhatu only, modified using shatr pratyaya. Okay, because as means to be. When you modify using shatr pratyaya, so the sense becomes while being. Okay, while it is happening, when it is happening. So from us only you get this sat pratipadika, and this sati is just the saptami vibhakti of this pratipadika sat. That is why, just to show that samplutodake, when the flooding is happening, when flooded with water, upon the flooding with water. So in order to show that saptami vibhakti is used for the sati saptami prayoga, a lot of time they will put this in the bracket. Okay, but a lot of times they also don't put it. So contextually we have to understand whether this is a usual saptami vibhakti prayoga or it is a sati saptami prayoga. Okay, that context helps. Okay, so anyways, I hope this pada and everything about this pada, this is clear. Let us see one more word and then we'll see the entire meaning of this sentence so far. So we had samplutodake, when flooded with water. But kutra, where? And the response is sarvataha. That sarvataha, this is an indeclinable avyaya. Sarvataha means from all sides, basically all around, basically everywhere. Okay, so this sarvataha again follows the same suit as purataha, prashtataha, in the front and the back. So sarvataha, from all sides. So from all sides, all around. That is the sense this sarvataha is giving. This is an avyaya, indeclinable. But anyways, now we have this first structure, first sentence ready. So here what Krishna is trying to say is, yavan artha, as much meaning or as much use is there in the small reservoir. As much meaning is there in a small reservoir like a well, when it is flooding with water from all sides. So Krishna is saying that when it is over flooded with water from all the sides, and at that time, as much use, as much prayojana is left in a small reservoir, like a pond, like a well. So this is what Krishna is saying so far. So in our second part of shloka, we are again starting with this implicit asti, and the main part is tavan asti. See, you have this tavan. So yavan, tavan, this yavan, this means as much, and its complementary pair, this tavan, this means that much. Okay, we make such statements, no? As much you do this, that much you will gain. So in that sense only yavan and tavan both are used. Artha is used only once, but this artha is implied here also. Yavan artha, tavan artha. As much meaning, that much meaning in that sense. So tavan artha asti, that much meaning, that much prayojana, that much purpose, that much use. So that is what Krishna is saying. Again, the similar kind of question, that kasmin, purpose in what, meaning in what. So here we have tavan artha sarveshu vedeshu. So vedeshu, this is coming from Veda Pratipadika. Okay, Veda, we know, our book of knowledge, the Vedas. It is a masculine gender Pratipadika, and Vedeshu. So this is the Saptami Vibhakti Bahuvachanam, seventh case plural form. So Vedeshu means in the Vedas, and I want to say in all the Vedas. So I am using a pronoun with it, that is Sarva. Sarva is a pronoun, it is a Sarvanama, which means all. So since this Sarvanama is being used for this noun, so it is also going to take the same form. Masculine gender, Saptami Bhakti, Bahuvachanam. So Sarva changes into Sarveshu. So Sarveshu Vedeshu, in all the Vedas. Okay, that is the meaning. Now, Kesham, that for whom, that you are saying that much meaning remains in all the Vedas, for whom? So now we have this pada, Brahmanasya. Brahmana, this is again a pullinga, a masculine gender Pratipadika. Brahmanasya, so this is the Shashti Vibhakti singular form. Okay, simple to identify, Brahmanasya, Shashti Vibhakti Ekvachanam form. And what is the meaning of a Brahmana? So Brahmana, this basically means a learned person. Okay, a learned person or a spiritual seeker. You can also relate a spiritual seeker with this meaning, Brahmana. And again, please don't consider this Brahmana as the Brahmin caste people that we follow today. That all the people who have certain caste like Mishra, Tiwari, Shukla, so all of them consider themselves Brahmana. No, Krishna is obviously not talking about this mistreated caste system. Brahmana in a true sense, in actuality, the meaning of Brahmana is Brahma Janati. Yaha Brahma Janati, Saha Brahmana. That one who knows the Brahma, one who knows the Brahman, he was called Brahmana. So by Brahmana, it meant something significant. And that something significant is all the learned people, all the wise people, the learned people, and even a sincere spiritual seeker. He was also in that same line of being a Brahmana. So Brahmana meant something very significant, that a learned person, a very wise person, that was Brahmana. That for a Brahmana, for a learned person, tavan artha sarveshu vedoshu, that much meaning, that much use remains in all the Vedas. That is a sentence so far. And again, this Brahmana, this is also qualified with an adjective. That is why I'm asking Kidrisham. What like? What kind of Brahmana? So Krishna uses an appropriate adjective for Brahmana, that is someone who is a learned person. That is this Vijanataha. What is the Pratipadika for this Vijanataha? So the Pratipadika is Vijanat. This is the Pratipadika, a Takarant Pratipadika. And this Vijanat, this means someone who is all-knowing. Okay, someone who knows the entirety of the Shastra, someone who is all-knowing. And to say that someone is all-knowing, this simply means someone who is enlightened, someone who is self-realized. Because again, this reminds us of that beautiful question that our rishis in Mundaka Upanishad asked. So our rishis asked that Kasmin Vignyate Sarvamidam Vignatam Bhavati. That what is it that knowing which everything else becomes known? So what is it that knowing which everything else becomes known? And of course, the answer was the self, that self-realization, that self-enlightenment. So that is why Vijanat, someone who is all-knowing, this is basically someone who is an enlightened person, someone who is a self-realized person. Okay, so that is this Vijanat. And again, this Vijanat, this is qualifying this Brahmana. So we are just using the same masculine gender, Shashti Vibhakti and singular form. So Vijanat, Atakarant Pratipadika becomes Vijanataha. That is what you see here in the shloka. Vijanataha Brahmanasya. Okay, so I hope all these padas, everything is clear. Now let us move and see the Anvay along with the Anuvada, so that the full meaning of the shloka will be clear. So see, here in the shloka, Krishna has used a simile. He has used a comparison, an upama. That is why he is using these two terms, yavan and tavan, as much, that much. Because a comparison is being made, a simile is being given here by Krishna. And what is it? So he is saying that yavan arthaha udapane, that as much use is in the reservoir of water, sarvataha samplutodake, when there is flood everywhere. So when there is flood everywhere, when there is water everywhere, so what purpose remains of a small reservoir of water? Basically no purpose, right? It becomes redundant. So that is what Krishna is saying, that yavan arthaha utapane, that as much use is there in the small reservoir of water when there is flood everywhere. Tavan arthaha, so much use remains in sarveshu vedeshu, that so much use remains in all the Vedas for whom? For a vijanataha brahmana, for a self-realized learned one. So basically he's saying that just as a small reservoir of water, this becomes redundant when there is flood, when there is water everywhere. So in that same way, for a person who is self-realized, vijanataha, for a person who is self-enlightened, self-realized, sarveshu vedeshu, in all the Vedas, the meaning becomes redundant. Because again, he is anyways all-knowing, he is anyways self-realized now. So that is what Krishna is saying. See, basically Krishna is telling what? Krishna is saying that as long as we keep on identifying with our ego, as long as we keep on identifying with our limited self, then all these external knowledges, all these external objects and everything, they make sense. Okay, they make sense to make us happy. They make sense to make us more learned. They make sense to propel us in a right direction. So all these knowledges that are given in Veda, be it the Karma Kand, be it the Jnana Kand, whatever it is given in the Vedas, everything makes sense in their own meaning, in their own standards. But once a person is self-realized, once a person has known the self, then that finite, that itself becomes infinite. That jiva becomes infinite. And once you have become infinite, then what can a finite medium do for you? So that is what Krishna is telling us. All the rituals give you something in return. It can be a small thing, it can be a big thing. It can be as a small thing as getting wealth, as getting money. It can be as a big thing as getting heaven in your afterlife, or getting something much bigger. It can be anything, big or small, but still that's something that you get when you perform a certain ritual. That something gives you happiness and joy, that bounds your happiness and joy with something that is outside you. Your happiness is bound to something that is external, something that is outside you. And that means we are still identifying ourselves as a finite being, because only when we feel we are finite, we feel we are incomplete and we need something to complete us. So, but when we understand the self, then we understand our true nature and we become infinite. And when we become infinite, then what is the use of the Vedas, that knowledge, Karma Kanda, Jnana Kanda, anything in that matter? Because, and the simile is that Upma is given, that if there is water everywhere, then what a small reservoir can do? What use remains in that small reservoir when there is flood everywhere? So that is the same case with these enlightened people, that once they are enlightened, then there is bliss, there is joy everywhere. Their joy comes from within, because that is our nature. Now their joy is not bound to something that is outside. So this is what Krishna is telling us. And see, on a first look of this shloka, it sounds philosophically and from a spiritual point of view, it sounds very good, it sounds beautiful, it sounds poetic, and it gives a good message. We all understand. But there is also a very practical message that is hidden there. And that practical message is that Krishna is asking us to stop, pause for a moment, and think that how much our happiness and our peace is dependent on an outside world. We have given our reins of happiness and peace to so many people outside, to so many circumstances outside, to so many things outside. And all those people, all those things, with just a tug of that pull, of that rein, they can make us happy or unhappy. They can make us peaceful or agitated. So we need to understand this, that how much how much control we have given to the external world of our own happiness, of our own peace. And that needs to be properly assimilated in our mind. Our viveka, this needs to work on that. We need to stop and pause in our life and realize this thing, that there are so many people outside. Those people control my happiness. Those people control my peace. Then there are so many things outside, my house, my car, my this, my that, my bank balance, all this control my happiness, all this control my peace. So this is, how horrible is this? Because as long your peace, your happiness comes from external sources, we will always be chasing that. We will always be just going on a loop and loop. So that is what the shloka is telling us, that pause for a moment and realize that all these happiness, peace, that should come within, because we are that infinite source of peace and happiness. So if we can find our peace and happiness from within, from ourselves, then that dependency on external world, that will break. And only when that breaks can we proceed further in this spiritual journey. So that is important. That is again a wake up call. See, this entire Gita, Arjuna is just representing us. Arjuna is just representing all of humanity. He's representing all of us. So when Krishna says anything to Arjuna, it has to directly be taken onto our own selves. And we have to understand this. We have to apply this in our day-to-day life. So that is how we use Gita. Because again, everyone says, no, Gita is a manual. Gita is a manual of self-improvement. So we have to use it as a manual. We cannot just use it as a, as a sermon that you just listen to it and forget. You just listen to it, enjoy it. It sounds poetic, it sounds beautiful, and that is it. No, we have to think about it and we have to apply it, because it is a manual. We need to repair and reestablish ourselves using the instructions that is given here in the Bhagavad Gita. So again, all these, so much meaning can be derived from each shloka. We already know about this Bhagavad Gita. I hope all the padas, everything was clear. Again, the PDF sheet is there to assist you in case I miss out anything. I'll take leave now. I'll meet you with another video in another shloka. Until then, stay awesome, stay happy, keep learning Sanskrit. Vayam punah milamaha. Dhanyavad.